Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Shuffle Bus. I'm Jesse, back again with more Ashes Reborn. Super excited to be showing you an AIL Top Cut match. So, for those of you that don't know, 12 players, 42 players entered the AIL back in November. We've now made it through the qualifying rounds. The top 12 players have been selected. Very happy to be included in that prestigious list of people that are playing. And I was also able to sit down and record some of these matches, bringing us more AIL exposure, which I think is great because it gives you an opportunity to see other decks and strategies in play. And so this matchup, we have Prattlesnake and Doktarr playing. I don't know what either player is bringing to the table. We'll certainly see here in just a second. I'm going to be watching this game live. I have not previewed this game at all. I had to start the recorder and then step away to take care of some family stuff. So I'm super excited to see these decks play out and what happens. So let's get the match started. We'll transition over, get you onto the game surface, and we will get started. Here we go.
No, that's the wrong one.
I gotta grab.
All right, Doktarr drops a Aradel with 4 Charm and 6 Nature, and Prattlesnake drops Brennan with 5 Ceremonial, 2 Charm, and 3 Divine. All right, so they pick their top 5s here. Obviously, as a spectator, we're not able to see the hands. I wish it was possible. So Doktarr is challenging himself to build a 2-color deck and see if it's viable. All right, so they were sitting here waiting for me to join. So yeah. Okay, so okay. so Doktarr tells Prattlesnake that he's 100% sure he's got a Lightbringer. Prattlesnake is notorious for playing Lightbringer in every deck, so I think that's a pretty funny comment to come out here because probably a pretty good bet there's a Lightbringer here. So, in fact, there's a combo. I remember them discussing this in the Discord post game. So since I'm coming back to it later, there's a combo that he talks about specifically that's pretty powerful here, and I'm sure we'll get to see it in play and see how it works out. But Aradel is really well positioned with her ability to ping things away and open the windows, if you will, for attacks directly into Phoenixborns with the Water Blast on her basic side, on her Phoenixborn side. And I think it's one of the few abilities that's pretty strong for a dice costing on the PB. Like just having a way to deal damage, some way to deal damage directly to units just on board always is a pretty good way, even if it's dice. But it does mean that the rest of your deck is sort of punished by this. Like if you're going to use Water Blast every round, then some of your dice are just consumed by that every round, and so that means that the rest of the deck has to sort of be affordable around that idea. But Aradel is also really good with blue Jaguars, and Blue Jaguars being able to prevent a unit from guarding or blocking means that you can attack with a Jaguar and another unit and get both of them through, because if you're controlling the board well enough, then you're in a position where you can still bypass, essentially, which is a big way that a lot of aggro decks work. So looks like Brennan's going to get to go first here. And we're going to see a three-eyed owl come down. So they're discussing right now, trash talking to each other while they're playing, but and specifically related to chess, apparently. But it's now going to be Doktar's turn in round one, and we're going to see Doktarr bring down what exactly? His own summon. I'm not sure what that is. I can't tell for sure. I'm sorry. Summon Lightbringer comes down, which we knew Prattlesnake was going to have, just obviously. So he goes ahead and plays a Raptor Herder. Great first 5 card. Aradel's got a big battlefield, so making a couple of units for 1 die is a really efficient play, even if that 1 unit is an 0-1 until it gets some help. So if he drops Lightbringer here, then Herder fights into Lightbringer. so a spectator comes in and says the trash talk was Raptor Herder slightly annoying. One of the players, I think it was Christian, Prattlesnake went, "Oh yeah, that's slightly annoying." So that's pretty funny. They're definitely not very good at this trash talk business, apparently. And that's what I love about this community, though. While a decision's being made, is that everybody is really friendly in this community. No, I mean nobody is. Okay, so there's the Psychic Vampire coming down. So Psychic Vampire is pretty interesting because it's a 2/1, and when it dies from an opponent's effect or combat, it discards a card from the opponent's hand. So it sort of slows you down to a point where you have to decide how to deal with the vampire on your own terms. So like now Doktarr has a decision, right? He can't really be super aggressive. He's kind of got to unload his hand, and sometimes round 1 first 5s are sort of staged around this idea of like getting some tempo and then forcing your opponent to respond to that tempo, and then I got you with something that's bigger, right? That's sort of the tactical decisions that can come into round 1 first 5s. Obviously Aradel can get rid of the vampire anytime, but it's going to cost him a card, so it's going to cost dice and cards to get rid of vampire. And what makes this really good is the Lightbringer itself can force the attack into the vampire or force the attack into something, and the vampire can deal with that. But if it's the Lightbringer's on the field, your opponent can just simply attack into that. So he pulls an owl. This is an interesting counter to if Lightbringer gets summoned, because if Lightbringer gets summoned, you can just attack with an 0-2 owl. Doesn't matter, right? Like it's sort of turning the Lightbringer off. Owls are kind of good at doing that. So I like this play. I think it's a good way to deal with the risk of a Lightbringer when you've just got a Herder hatchling type of thing. All right, so he's going to attack Vampire into Phoenixborn. So he just goes straight to the Phoenixborn's face. Aradel takes 2. He's going to memory drain off the owl. So there goes a Blood Archer. That seems particularly bad to lose here. I don't know what the other card is in hand. Yeah, I think I don't know what this last card is. Okay, so there's Three-Eyed Owl. So it plays Owl into Aradel's Water Blast. That's just one of the things that Aradel's really good at. Costs 2 dice to do that. We then get a... I cannot tell what that summon is. Summon... Not sure what that is. Had a charm cost, so we'll see what that is. I think, oh, it's Gilder. Summon Gilder. Okay. Yeah, so working through bringing the Lightbringer out still, which is going to force the next main action to be an attack. Prevents the Gilder from being able to come down. Prevents cards from hand coming out. Most likely what you're looking at is if Lightbringer goes down, the opponent's going to get 2 Sleeping Widows off the Lightbringer, which is why the double ceremonial is up. That's what they're referring to here is the last card. I still think Blood Archer is a better card here because it just takes the opponent's board completely down over Sleeping Widows, where, yeah, you get 2/2/1s, but I think the Blood Archer would have been better and the Sleeping Widow would have been better to drop here. So I think one of the big things was attacking with the Psychic Vampire was a complete mistake in round 1. There was just no reason to do that. The 2 damage is not enough to matter. This is an interesting decision. I think I would go just hurt. Well, I guess the vampire is exhausted, so its ability doesn't do anything because it attacked, which is why I think it was a mistake to attack with vampire. Especially if your plan is what Christian was talking about here, is his plan was to play Lightbringer, side action, Spirit Burn the Lightbringer, deal 2 damage to your opponent, which is still the 2 damage the vampire did. So you still get your 2 damage in, and then the only unit up is an unexhausted vampire, and your opponent has to attack into that. Now, obviously, the hatchling could have attacked there, but you're killing the hatchling for free at that point. So Grave Knight's a big deal here. But I still think that probably Blood Archer is more impactful than Grave Knight here. I could be wrong on that. Obviously, Grave Knight's a very powerful unit, but your opponent has got very little up, and like he can just go Gilder, and he can meditate one, like go Gilder, Nature Power. Okay, so if I'm looking at it from the opposite side, what I would do is I would go Gilder, Nature Ping, do 2 damage to the Grave Knight. So I'm sure that's... Here's the Gilder. I actually would have pinged the Grave Knight. I don't care about the Lightbringer anymore. Like, its effect is dead. It's just a 1/1 on the board. The Grave Knight's a 4/3 that can attack and you're forced to block it. So you're going to suffer 1 damage no matter what. But the Gilder would have dealt 1 and then side action into doing 2nd point of damage to Grave Knight. And then you can meditate, right? Like, yeah, I still think the Gilder is the correct card to disappear here because the hatchling is turned on and the Gilder is resummonable every turn, whereas the hatchling is not. So I'm not sure I'm right on that again, but I just looking at the board state in this current scenario, your opponent's out of cards, so he's going to get back the Blood Archer now. So this first 5 was so dice efficient that he's actually still able to play the Blood Archer, which is going to chew through the board now. So maybe that information is enough of a reason to keep to do what you were doing and hold the Grave Knight, but you could have done the same thing with Grave Knight and brought it back and still had the Archer to sort of like ping down the Gilder, ping down the Herder, like, just continue to control the opponent's board. So we get a summon Frostback Bear, I think is what this is. Yep. Frostback Bear is an interesting card here. this is even more reason why I think the Gilder is supposed to ping the Grave Knight, because the Lightbringer can't defend the bear either. And then you have just bear able to attack into Grave Knight and kill the Grave Knight, or do 2 to Brennan. And you had different ways to approach like pinging the Grave Knight down, and now you don't, right? Like I would have just gone ahead, like my play would have been to meditate 2, take both of those nature die up to so, and this is the Jaguar. Yeah, so plan now is, how do we play Jaguar? How do we play Bear? Which I can do with the dice spread he has. The Jaguar doesn't mean anything, but you have top around first, which is all the more reason why I think you're supposed to block with the Gilder then, to keep the Raptor up, so that you have pressure on the board for your top around. Like, you then make the Raptor into a 2/1. Obviously, the Blood Archer play is going to put a kink in that, but yeah. But I think you leave the hatchling up, because you would force 1 activation of the Blood Archer into the hatchling. But again, I don't think the Raptor hatchling is going to make it through this round in this state, no matter what. But I think you have to just respect that. So here comes the bear. Gilder's Inheritance will trigger. So this is going to be a game where, like, I think at this point, no matter what, I talk a lot about in my Herald deck permanence on board, and how that changes the basic math. And so here's a blue Jaguar. And then the blue Jaguar is going to attack for 1. I think that one of the major mistakes is leaving the Grave Knight up when you had outs for killing the Grave Knight, instead of just leaving the Lightbringer on board. Like you just left your opponent with their best threat and took away their worst threat, which is a Lightbringer. Like, they can only summon 1 more Lightbringer, so if you just leave Lightbringers up and your plan is bears and Jaguars, so you can just say, well, you can't block my bears, and you can't the Lightbringers can't be summoned anymore to force me to attack. So that's so yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think that both players sort of misevaluated. Like, if plan was Blood Archer kill bear and kill a Gilder, like, then the Gilder's best option was to kill the Grave Knight, right? Because and so, because you're going to make another Gilder right here, right? And so you already had and then he's going to Gilder and use Aradel's ability to kill them. So I think that's fine. I just think you could have done that to the Blood Archer this turn instead, and you would have been in a very similar board state. Only, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's going to work out probably fine. I think the Aradel player has a ton of tempo here. Here's the Summon Sleeping Widows, so we got a couple of 2/1s, but Yep. So they're just talking about how like Aradel and Gilder used to be really good because most of the knights used to be 3 life. And so you could Aradel Gilder and kill most 3 life units, and now most of the knights are 4 life, and so the combo doesn't work. I would argue that at this point, like you just go with Summon Biter and Close Combat, and you get a 3/2 that can do the same thing, Biter Gilder, which we saw with Mayoni. Um, so the 2/1 Sleeping Widows are interesting. Um, okay, so see Sympathy Pain come off the top. Um, what I like about Owl with Brennan is the ability to possibly memory drain and then deal 2 damage with the Brennan ability. Um, Lots of dice have been spent already just to play the Widows, and I think the Widows are not as great in this scenario. I guess they sort of put up a defensive wall against your opponent, but yeah, you just go ahead and memory drain here. So Rising Horde comes down. I don't think that's a big deal because you've got the Widows out instead, and they had essentially the same cost as Widow. So, I mean, I guess if it's between Widow and Horde, you probably go Widows just for the extra point of attack across the 2 units, although 3 units are maybe better. I mean, it's really marginal. Um, I think the Brennan player's in a lot of trouble. They law. I mean, like, are you going to take a point of damage to recur Grave Knight when you know your opponent can just like? So Drain loses a redirect. I think that makes sense. So there's 2 damage from the Sphere Burn. So we go to 11 on the Aradel. So I think he's gonna make another owl. Yeah. So good defender unit against the widows. Takes away another card from opponent's hand. If he doesn't have good ways to deal with the owls, um, he's just letting him know he'll stop owling when he doesn't have any cards in hand. That's funny. Um, you get back. Okay. I don't. Why would we grab Shepherd? Um, I don't understand that decision, but okay, we'll see what happens with Shepherd. I think if you're going to take one, you need to be getting your Grave Knight or getting back the uh, uh, the Blood Archer, and I think the Blood Archer does a lot more work here. Ish. I mean, Blue Jaguar is a problem, but if he summons Bear, like Blood Archer can do the same thing it did before to the Bear. Plays another Gilder book. That's going to enable him to now ping the widows away. So I think you have to now be aggressive with widows because you know they're not going to live. A Gilder's going to ping it away. See, I think that's a misplay because you're just inviting your opponent to summon a Gilder and kill a unit with no value. So you might as well attack into Aradel with a widow, and attack Aradel with both widows because it forces defense where he takes 4. He's only got 2 damage on the board against you right now. So I still think like if he summons Gilder and kills an exhausted widow, whatever, no big deal, right? You're going to go first next round. I don't think you're winning this match if you're not being aggressive with these 2/2/1s on the board when he can summon a Gilder. And this is exactly my reasoning. Yeah, so he has Brennan tank. The hit takes 1, and then Sympathy Pains to 2 on the Aradel. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I guess I'm just still seeing like this is where the Gilder's going to come and ping. Right. I just think that's a major misplay. Like you got to use both of those units. And there was the 1 damage from the Raptor Herder. So again, if you'd attacked last turn before second Gilder comes into play, you're able to swing. You'd be able to swing 4 damage at the Phoenixborn. Your opponent would most likely defend with a Gilder, and then they'd have to choose either to lose the Jaguar or the Raptor Herder or take 2. Right? So you can't get the Blood Archer because you can't play it. So the question would be, can you play this and then play the Grave Knight? And I think you can. So you get the Shepherd, bring back the Grave Knight. I still think you could have done all of this and had 1 more die remaining. I don't know what the last card in hand is, but that would allow you to Lightbringer and force an attack. And I think that would be better here, right? Because you save 1 dice and you have another Lightbringer on the field, versus playing a full turn Shepherd that turns into a Frostback Bear that you can't really deal with, right? Like, how are you going to deal with the bear? You definitely have to attack. Should have done this a while ago. I still think you attack and remove. Like you, I think he had a window to use the widow. The window's no longer present. Um, it's too late now. Like again, before you had the opportunity to use widows to advantage, to either remove 2 units off the board, or do 2 damage to a Phoenixborn and remove a unit off the board. It's yep. So massive growth the bear for 6 trample damage. So again, this is where you still have 1 die left. But I think you attack, force the Gilder to You just swing at the Aradel and force the Gilders to block, or you deal 4. Like, that's because the Jaguar is going to stop the Grave Knight from being able to defend anyways, so... Yep, so he's going to swing for 7. Yeah, so I think the outcome would be very similar. But if we would have gone the way I intended to go, then you would have just eliminated the other Gilder off the board with the Grave Knight. And so you don't give the opportunity for him to set up a second Gilder. Again, I think the first misplay was attacking with the Psychic Vampire and not allowing that ability to stay on. Like, that's just a defensive unit you should leave up. And if your plan is to do Psychic Vampire, Lightbringer with Spirit Burn, which I think is a cool plan, then you really do have to just like go, okay, here's how we're doing it. If that last card's not Meteor, you have to pitch it. It does not do anything for you. See, I think you're so dead on board that you draw 5 cards here. Because right now he can attack for 3, but he can attack for 3, 4, and stop the Grave Knight from being able to defend. All right, so we're going to prolong the game through a kneel. Maybe. They're thinking it might win the game. I'm not sure I'm agreeing with that completely. But all right, so all right. I like redirect if you get kneeled. So he calls. Don't know what his side action is yet, but most likely it's going to be Aradel into... All right, so choke stops the Aradel. Very nice. That's a good way to stop the ping damage I think he was trying to set up there with meditating into Nature Power into Aradel to remove the Grave Knight. I think you have to have another Grave Knight in the bin now, because then you could go Ceremonial to get Grave Knight, play Grave Knight. Next round, Divine Grave Knight, attack and win. Assuming that he doesn't put up something here, which is going to be a bear. Yeah. But you can you can't Lightbringer and do what I just talked about doing. Yeah, a massive growth bear wins the game here. You have to have some sort of play, which is why I would prefer. Like, I don't know what that play is yet. I don't know what I wish I knew what his hand looked like because that would help me think through different outs and whether or not it was the right play or not is difficult without knowing the hand. So chat is heckling in the sense that they're saying we'll just play it as a Twitch plays Pokemon, and the chat will determine what he's supposed to play here. So none of his summons stop the bear. So if he gets massive growth, you have to have a plan, which is why I think your best plan is to go ahead and bring back another Grave Knight because it can stand in front of the bear. So I think he's ceremonial. Take one, bring back the bear. If the bear gets massive growth, you're able to stand in front of it with the Grave Knight, and then once the massive growth falls off, I'm pretty sure the bear dies because I don't think the massive growth gives you recovery. I could be wrong on that, but I think if you're worried about a massive growth bear winning the game, that's got to be your plan right now because then the Grave Knight can defend you as you continue to set up the board. Yeah, I don't think the Lightbringer is correct, but what his plan is with Lightbringer is to force the bear to attack. He's going to take 2 damage, and so the issue is that yeah, the bear's still going to get 3 for 2, and so I still think the best. Yeah, no, the killing of the Lightbringer didn't matter. He even said it there. I I still think your best plan is to meditate into another Grave Knight because you're probably not. If you go to top a round, like he just attacks you for lethal with the 2 bears and the Jaguar and the Raptor. So yeah, it sort of depends on what's still in there. But if your best play is playing an owl, you're probably losing here. So he meditates 3. I don't have room for 8. Is that her battlefield size? I think it might be 8. That seems really bad. Because you can just drop another Jaguar. If you have 2 Jaguars, and you can force the Bears past the Grave Knights. So that's just the out for the Aradel player, right? Like you just play Jaguar. You don't care whether the Jaguar actually does anything this turn as long as it lives, and your opponent's only showing 4 dice left, so they're getting limited in what they can do. Um, you really don't care about cards in hand. So the Three-Eyed Owl's ability means absolutely 0 here. Yep. Because now it doesn't matter how many Grave Knights you play. Now, if you play a Grave Knight, you've got an interesting, like, this is where I still think the last turn, instead of playing Owl, if you play Grave Knight, you're sitting on a Grave Knight with an unexhausted Jaguar. You attack with Grave Knight into Aradel. The Jaguar has to defend. And so you're in a better position. But you're going to see here what's going to happen is Molten Gold. Molten Gold will take it to 1, and then it doesn't matter at that point, right? Like, he's probably got multiple outs. So I'm just basing this off of information on board and thinking about what your opponent would try to do. I think that, it goes back to the first 5 in this list, and obviously, like, if your Vampire Spirit Burn, I'm going to say it again, if your Vampire Spirit Burn is the plan, then you got to stick to that plan. Like you can't use the Vampire for 2 points of damage, because the literal difference between opponent at 5 or 7 right now is nothing. It means nothing right now. So Black Cloud Ninjas, whatever, cool. Yeah. The 1 life units walking into nature are just no bueno. And the thing is that instead of playing the owl, you could have played it off the dice you played to play the owl. You could have played the ninja off of. So you should have Grave Knight and ninja, or Grave Knight and owl, I guess, potentially. But I would have still played the owl last. I wouldn't have played it in the middle there. This is it's a close game. I think Brennan is best with nature, in my opinion, just because of Molten Gold. So Nature's Wrath is interesting. Everything on the opponent's board lives. That's pretty substantial. It's a pretty huge blowout, actually. Raptor Herder dies, but that actually opens up play now. Finish the owl. Again. We'll see what the last card in hand is. I can't think of what that dice spread would get you. Maybe a Beast Tamer? Potentially a Beast Tamer? Now, see, you can't ceremonial back a Knight. So you've left your dice in a really bad place. And Knight would have lived through this exchange, whereas the Owl wouldn't have. And if you'd have waited till Owl played last, then maybe your opponent still does this, but maybe not. Regardless, this has been a really good game. I mean, it's really close. I think that the Brennan deck had an opportunity to win. Brennan player is trying to think through his outs. I can't think of what you're going to do at this point. That's going to make a difference. Crimson Bomber is an interesting choice here. I think you have to kill the Jaguars and maybe live. It seems really unlikely that you're going to live through the bomber. Like, if you bomb or detonate here, and then you just like kill Jaguar, and a Gilder, I guess. Sneak in for 1 damage. Seems rough. Yeah, kill Jaguar, or kill Gilder, I guess. Well, that's one way to keep Jaguar alive. But you can't because of the other Jaguar. The 2 Jaguars were key here. Very possible massive growth does have recovery on it. Would make sense. So there's the scoop. Um, I'm just looking up the massive growth here really quick. I'm trying to remember. Yeah. So massive growth does have attack 4, life 4, but no recovery. So I think if you were to still go ahead and Crimson Bomber, then you would have 2 wounds on the Jaguar. Growth would fall off at the end of the round. Jaguar would die because there's 2. So I will get rules clarification on that. But nonetheless, this is a good matchup. I think Brennan player had ways to still win the game, but they were shrinking quickly, and redirect obviously is really bad and really difficult for somebody because you can just like tank a damage point here, tank the Brennan hit, something like that. So it would all depend on what the last 7 cards on the deck were. No idea what that's going to be. So that's going to be a top cut AIL match. Obviously, very well played by both players. Again, I wish I knew cards just so I could be a little bit more clear on card play and potentially whether it was a good choice or a bad choice. I know I say a lot, like I don't know if I agree with that decision, but I don't know what the other cards were, so it just is what it is. But all right, we will be back with more AIL in a future vid. Until then, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, or at least give us a thumbs up. It just tells us you like what we're doing, and we'll see y'all soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.